Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel and to some more buckshot testing. And today, we've got a rather interesting combination that might work out, but I have some serious doubts about it coming into it. But it's just one of those combos that I guess we're just going to have to try it and see what happens, because it could surprise us. But as for the shells I brought out here today, I got out some more of the Federal copper-plated buckshot loads, but these ones are the 20 gauge, 2 3/4 inch, 20 pellet load of 3 buck, moving about 1175 feet per second, and generally speaking, most of the Federal copper-plated buckshot lineup is pretty good. However, the 20 gauge versions so far haven't really lived up to that. I'll talk more about that in a second, but as for the setup we're going to run them through, I brought out the Stevens 301 20 gauge. It's got a 26-inch barrel on it, and for the choke, we've got the factory original stock extra full, technically turkey choke in the gun. Now, the thing about these 301s, they're a cheap budget shotgun, and the stock turkey chokes they come with can be pretty tight or pretty open. This is an extra full, but it only measures out at a 588 constriction. So for a 20 gauge extra full choke, that is a little bit more on the open side, a lot closer to a full choke, but it's an extended choke, so that may help us out some here. We're just gonna have to see what happens. Now, real quick, here's the thing about 20 gauge buckshot in general. We've done a good number of tests with it now in a variety of different brands, different loads, different shells, different shot sizes, and I think we may have seen 1 or 2 halfway decent results. Typically, no matter what shell, no matter what choke, what constriction, tight or more open, 20 gauge buckshot tends to struggle very much. From what I've seen, you stand a much better chance of getting a usable pattern with a tighter constriction choke. And I do think extended chokes help a little bit as well, to have a little bit smoother of a transition down to that constriction, which is why I don't have the highest hopes for these shells today. They haven't really been anything impressive so far, just like most 20 gauge buckshot loads, but this combo might work out considering what the choke is. We're just gonna have to try it and see what happens. But as for today's test, we're keeping everything the same as usual. I've got the big sheet of paper at 40 yards, as well as the chronograph and the templates, so we can put them up over our target when we go take a look at it, if it's a usable result. So let's get you guys a view of that target and see what kind of a pattern we can get from these copper plated 3 buck shells through the stock extra full choke today. Alright, so that shell gave us 1148 through the chrono. The boss claim is 1175. So we were just a little bit under that, but still well within the realm of reason. And that could just be the difference in us having a 26-inch barrel versus the potential that the factory tested it from a 28. Either way, perfectly fine for velocity, but did they give us a usable pattern or not down there at 40? Let's go check it out and see. Alright, so now we're down here at our 40-yard paper, and we got some rather interesting results here. Now, for reference, the white dot was my point of aim. The paper's 36 inches wide by about 44 inches tall, and we had 17 out of the 20 pellets that actually hit the paper here, and you can see all of them right there on your screen. Our core might have favored just a touch below that white dot there, but to be honest with you, that's probably one of the better quote-unquote core areas that we've seen from a 20 gauge buckshot load. You have a decent number of pellets right through there in roughly a 10 or 12 inch circle right below that white dot. So for a core, it is actually a usable combination. Now, outside of that, we definitely threw a good number of flyers around the bottom edge there and a couple all the way up here at the top. And for the missing 3 pellets, I have no idea where they went, but they did not hit the paper or the pallet anywhere around the edges. So we had our fair share of flyers. There's no doubt about that. And yes, I did double check all those holes. They are all single holes. We didn't double up in any of the holes there. So overall, for a pattern, is it a great buckshot pattern in the grand scheme of things? It's kind of just middle of the road okay. Obviously, in a 12 gauge, we have seen way better patterns than this. However, for a 20 gauge buckshot pattern, that's actually pretty decent considering what we've seen so far. Now, as far as those flyers go, is that because maybe it was overchoked a little bit? I mean, theoretically, it's possible, but kind of unlikely based on what I have personally seen so far in my testing, but at least it gave us a usable result. And I think a lot of it probably had to do with that extended choke and being just a touch tighter than a full choke. So not completely horrible for the blank sheet of paper, but let's throw a couple templates up and see how it would look in a real life scenario. So first up here is our 10-inch circle, and I did go ahead and favor it a touch low since that's where our core actually was, and we had 6 out of the 20 pellets within a 10-inch circle at 40 yards. For a buckshot load in general, that's about average, 5 or 6 pellets or so. For a 20 gauge load, that's a pretty decent core. So considering what it is, not horrible for a 10-inch circle at 40 yards, but let's throw a few animal templates up and see how it would look if you were to use that on a hunt. So here is our deer template, and I did favor it a little bit low since our pattern was low. And to my surprise, this is one of the rare occasions that we actually have a usable 40-yard deer hunting pattern here. You would have had roughly 12 pellets that would have hit him at 40 yards, and at mid 1100 feet per second range, 3 buck, whether it's from a 12 gauge or a 20 gauge shell, is gonna be perfectly fine for you. So ideally, would it be my first choice for a deer hunt? Probably not, because I don't know how consistent these shells are yet from a 20 gauge, but this shot would have absolutely done the job for you, and it's pretty decent for a 20 gauge load. But now let's switch over and throw our hog template up and see how that one looks as well. And here's that hog template, and it's pretty well the exact same story. Absolutely good enough to take out on a hog hunt if you needed to or wanted to. You have more than enough pellets right there through the vital area to get the job done. And for those of you predator hunters out there that might think about using this combo or want to use this combo, a coyote would be just a touch smaller than the hog template is here, and it would be good enough out to 40 yards for those guys as well. So overall here today, I'm honestly a little bit surprised here. Coming into it, I did not have high hopes for this combination, but I thought since that stock extra full was just a touch tighter than a full choke, and it was an extended choke with no porting or anything in it, that we might stand a chance to get a decent pattern from it. And I would say we saw a usable result here today. That's probably one of the better 20 gauge buckshot patterns we've seen. And it's very rare that we get something that's even remotely usable at all. So how consistent would it be if we tried multiple shots? That I don't know, but at least it's a somewhat hopeful of a combination here that could have absolutely been way worse than what it is. So all things considered, it's not horrible for today. Alright y'all, well, what did you think about that result right there? I think it's decent, all things considered. 20 gauge has been nothing but a struggle when it comes to buckshot so far. No matter what choke or shell we've run, it doesn't matter. We've only ever seen 1 or maybe 2 usable patterns until that, and although that is still not anything that I would call super impressive necessarily, at least it's a usable combination if that's what you had or what you could find or what you wanted to run. So for me, it's a little bit surprising today. I knew coming into it, it was a pretty big toss-up that might work out or might not. And I guess I'm pretty satisfied, all things considered, for what it is. And now we're just going to have to keep testing those shells through some other pretty similar style of chokes or similar constriction chokes and see if we might be able to dial these in any better than that. It might be a little bit of a challenge to get something better than that, but we'll see what happens. But as always, leave your thoughts down below. Is it about what you expected to see? Were you a little surprised one way or the other? Have you tested any 20 gauge buckshot loads or the 20 gauge federal copper plated loads? And if so, what kind of results have you seen from them? Is that a pattern or a combo that you would ever hunt with? Or would you much rather just use a 12 gauge buckshot load or see that tightened up a little more? And what other shells and choke combos do you want to see with those copper plated 3 buck loads or that stock extra full extended choke? Let me know all that down below. But with that being said, I've got some more testing to get done for you guys, so I'm going to get back to it. As always, we have the channel Instagram as well as the mailbox where you can send stuff if you'd like. All the information will be in the description if you're interested in it, but I'm going to get back to it, so I'll see y'all in the next one.